What happens when one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time is dropped into one of the NFL's toughest environments? Tim Couch went from breaking records at Kentucky to being sacked 56 times as a rookie, a career defined by talent, fighting through chaos. In 2002, he finally proved he could deliver. Then one hit erased it all. This is Tim Couch's rise, resilience, and the cruel twist that left fans asking, what if? Tim Couch's reputation as a rising star didn't begin in Lexington or with the NFL draft. It started in Hyden, Kentucky, where Friday nights turned into a showcase. At Leslie County High, Couch rewrote national records with more than 12,000 passing yards and 133 touchdowns. And he wasn't only a quarterback. He dominated basketball too, once leading the state in scoring and finishing with over 3,000 career points. By graduation, Couch wasn't just a small-town star. He was one of the most recruited athletes in the country. Still, football was where the hype truly soared. Couch had the arm strength, accuracy, and poise scouts covet. Dozens of recruiters made the trip to Hyden, but he kept his choice close to home, signing with the University of Kentucky and giving Big Blue Nation something rare: hope they could finally compete in the SEC. That hope caught fire when new coach Hal Mumme and offensive coordinator Mike Leach installed the air raid offense, a wide-open, pass-heavy system that maximized Couch's skills. With receivers spread across the field and quick reads on nearly every snap, Couch's accuracy and decision-making flourished. By his sophomore year, Kentucky's offense was must-watch, highlighted by a signature upset over nationally ranked Alabama. And in 1998, Couch reached his peak: 4,275 passing yards, an SEC single-season record at the time, and a finish as a Heisman finalist. In just 3 years, he'd lifted Kentucky into national relevance almost single-handedly. But with the success came questions. Did the air raid inflate his stats? Could he thrive in an NFL system without the same simplified reads? Regardless, Couch declared for the NFL draft and instantly became one of the top names in pre-draft debates. The timing was striking. The expansion Cleveland Browns, returning after 3 years away, held the #1 pick. They weren't just drafting a quarterback, they were searching for the face of a new era. Weeks before the draft, the Browns sent their owner, GM, and head coach to watch Couch throw in a private workout. It was a statement. He responded with precision and poise, sealing his case. On draft night, Cleveland made it official. Couch went #1 overall, chosen ahead of Donovan McNabb and Akili Smith. McNabb's mobility was tempting, but Cleveland wanted the classic drop-back style, someone they believed could anchor a franchise. For the city, it was about more than talent. After years without a team, they finally had a quarterback to believe in. The build-up felt perfect. A record-breaking small-town star turned SEC sensation, now the centerpiece of Cleveland's rebirth. But being the #1 pick didn't guarantee success. It meant inheriting the weight of an expansion roster with glaring holes. That's where hype collided with reality. Once Couch stepped onto an NFL field, he learned how quickly hope can vanish when a quarterback is left unprotected. The return of the Browns in 1999 was more than a football story. It was a homecoming. Cleveland finally had its team back, and Tim Couch was the face of the rebirth. He wasn't just a quarterback, he was the symbol of a new era. But the roster wasn't built to win. It was stitched together just to survive Sundays. After an ugly opening loss, the Browns handed Couch the reins in Week 2. It looked like opportunity. In reality, it was trial by punishment. Couch was sacked 56 times, most in the league and nearly 4 per game. Defenders flew through breakdowns in protection, blindside blitzes, and straight-up whiffs up front. Some games he went down 6 or 7 times. Each hit chipped away at rhythm, confidence, and health. The system only made things worse. Rookie coach Chris Palmer leaned on long-developing routes, forcing Couch to wait while inexperienced receivers worked downfield. At Kentucky, he thrived on quick reads. In Cleveland, he was a sitting target, and there was no help around him. The Browns averaged just 70 rushing yards a game, with no Pro Bowl weapons or safety valves. Defenses knew it, loaded blitzes, and dared Couch to survive. The losses piled up fast. Cleveland stumbled to 2-14, and Couch absorbed the fallout. Critics pointed to hurried throws and shaky accuracy, but context mattered. He wasn't leading a veteran roster, he was dragging an expansion squad. Through it all, flashes of talent reminded everyone why he'd gone number one: tight window lasers, calm strikes under pressure, and one unforgettable moment. A last-second Hail Mary bomb to beat New Orleans, the lone spark in a long, dark season. But sparks couldn't hide the scars. Year 2 was supposed to bring growth, but instead it ended with a broken thumb that cost him 9 games. 2 seasons in, Couch had taken more punishment than many quarterbacks face in twice the time. By then, the questions had begun. Could he bounce back, or had the hits already altered his trajectory? Teammates admired his toughness. He kept standing up, but toughness alone wasn't enough to change fortunes. Couch left his first 2 years battered, but not beaten. The arm and poise were still there, but his development was stalled by chaos. And yet, just when it seemed his career might sink under the weight, he engineered a turnaround that gave Cleveland hope again. By 2002, the Browns had more stability under Butch Davis and a stronger roster around their quarterback, and Tim Couch responded. He missed the first 3 games, but once he returned, everything looked different. For the first time since Cleveland's rebirth, the team wasn't just surviving, it was competing, and Couch's poise under pressure was the difference. The overtime win against Tennessee told the story: 326 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a comeback victory. Later that season, Jacksonville saw the same thing when Couch uncorked a last-play heave of over 50 yards for a walk-off touchdown. These weren't flukes. They became signatures of his season. Couch finished the year, completing 61.6% of his passes for 2,842 yards and 18 touchdowns. But the story was bigger than stats. For the first time in years, Cleveland had a quarterback who wasn't just absorbing punishment. He was delivering wins in moments that used to bury the team. The Browns fed on that resilience. 5 of their 9 wins came in the final 2 minutes. 7 were decided by 10 points or fewer. This wasn't a team blowing opponents out. It was a team stealing games late, with Couch holding the wheel. It changed the perception of him. No longer just the battered number 1 pick, Couch looked like a franchise quarterback pulling Cleveland into relevance. The AFC Offensive Player of the Week award in September felt like validation, proof he could play at the level expected of him. That season gave Browns fans belief, tangible proof their team could win. And for Couch, it was redemption. He had endured sack after sack, injury after injury, and still delivered one of the most riveting seasons the franchise had seen in years. But the comeback climax had one final cruel moment. In the season finale, with Cleveland playoff bound, Couch dropped back to pass, and in an instant, everything changed. The Browns had just secured their playoff spot with a win over Atlanta when Tim Couch went down with a broken tibia. In an instant, the quarterback who had carried Cleveland back into relevance was sidelined. Their first postseason since returning to the league would have to unfold without him. The injury did more than end a season. It ripped away the momentum Couch had built with clutch drives and comeback wins. He had guided 5 victories in the final 2 minutes, earned the trust of his teammates, and given Cleveland its first winning record in years. Now, all of it was left hanging as backup. Kelly Holcomb stepped in for the wildcard game against Pittsburgh. Holcomb shocked everyone. He threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns in a 36-33 shootout loss, turning the spotlight overnight. Suddenly, a quarterback who had endured years of punishment to reach the postseason was watching his replacement become a folk hero in a single game. The fallout was immediate. Some argued Couch's injuries and inconsistency proved the Browns should move on. Others pointed to context, an expansion roster, constant punishment, and still finding a way to reach the playoffs. Even years later, Bruce Arians, his former coordinator, defended him as underrated, undone by injuries rather than talent. Couch himself reflected bitterly, "If that didn't happen, I think I would still be playing with the Browns." But the damage was done. Butch Davis opened a quarterback competition in 2003, and Holcomb's playoff performance gave him cover to question Couch's role. Soon, Cleveland signed veteran Jeff Garcia, effectively ending Couch's tenure. The broken leg didn't just cost him one playoff start, It fractured his standing as the face of the franchise. Had he stayed healthy and led the Browns into January, even one more comeback might have cemented his place. Instead, the cruel twist erased his redemption arc and left fans forever asking, what if? Bust or victim of circumstance? That's the question hanging over Tim Couch's career even decades later. On one hand, his 2002 season showed what he could be: 61.6% completions, 2,842 yards, and 18 touchdowns. On the other, injuries and inconsistency left him short of the franchise cornerstone Cleveland expected. Couch's efficiency wasn't terrible. Nearly 60% completion stacked up well against other Browns quarterbacks of that era. More telling were his clutch moments: 11 game-winning drives and 10 fourth-quarter comebacks, proof he could deliver when the game was on the line. His last-second bombs against Jacksonville and New Orleans remain legendary. He's still the only quarterback in NFL history with 2 50-yard walk-off touchdowns with no time left. But resilience couldn't erase the other side. Repeated shoulder and hand injuries, capped by the broken tibia, derailed his growth. For critics, that injury history explains why his career is remembered as a bust. And when you compare him to Donovan McNabb, drafted one slot later, the contrast sharpens. McNabb got stability in Philadelphia and built a playoff resume. Couch never had that foundation. Supporters argue those circumstances are the real story: a rookie year with 56 sacks, a roster of cast-offs, and a carousel of coaches. He wasn't given the infrastructure to succeed, yet still dragged Cleveland to its only playoff berth of that era. Even his college career reinforces the point. At Kentucky, Couch rewrote SEC records, became a Heisman finalist, and was later enshrined in the College Football Hall of Fame. The talent was never in doubt. The environment changed, not the player. Ultimately, his story splits fans. Critics see an underwhelming career ended by injuries. Defenders see flashes of brilliance drowned by chaos. Both sides have ammunition, which is why his name still sparks debate. Maybe Tim Couch should be remembered less as a bust and more as a case study, a talented passer thrown into the fire of expansion team dysfunction. His story is a reminder that context matters as much as talent, and that tension between what he was and what he could have been is where his legacy will always sit. Tim Couch's NFL story closes on a complicated note. His career totals don't tell the full story, but 2002 proved he had the tools to win when the team around him held up. What lasts just as much is his bond with Cleveland. Couch later said, "I love the Browns. They will always be my team." He proved he could do it, and then fate intervened. That's the what if that follows his name. So what do you think? Was Tim Couch a bust, or was he doomed from the start? Drop your take below, and if you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe for more.